Hey guys, Mr. Klein here, and we are looking at the next parts of our chapter, which was on Hinduism. And so let's go ahead and let's dive right into it. Now, 3,000 years ago, around 1700 BC, or close to 4,000 years ago, you had the Aryans move in to India from Central Asia. And over time, Aryan society managed to take over India and assert their influence. And one of the things they did was their societal structure, which is very important. And we actually see this influence even today in Indian society. Aryan society, and by extension, Indian society. So let's just get that out of the way. So from here on out, where you see Aryan, let's talk about the Indians. So it was divided into four main classes, and there's lots of different ones. And like you remember from the beginning lesson, I said that Indian history is so big and complex. We're just trying to make it really simple. There are four classes of people, and in this thing it was listed in an order of importance. And this stuff is super important. At the very top of Indian society were the Brahmin, and the Brahmin were the priests who led Indian society. So at the top we have the Brahmin. They were all the religious leaders of India, and the higher up you went, the higher up within this caste you were in, which we'll define what caste is in a second. And below them were the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas are the rulers of the warriors, which is really interesting when we look at this, and especially the third class. And we're going to go back to the pyramid in a second. But below the Kshatriyas, which are the rulers of the warriors of Indian society, were the Visas. And the Visas were common people, your average person. They included farmers, they included craftspeople, and they included traders. Now, whenever we look at the Indian caste system, we notice that there's a difference between India's society and the Sumerians and Egyptians that we talked about earlier. The big one was the fact that the priests were at the top rather of Indian society, unlike the other civilizations. Usually you would have the Insi in Sumeria, who was kind of like the king and the high priest all rolled up in one, but he was the king. The pharaoh was God on earth, but he was the king, and so he was at the top. In India, the rulers, the various kings of the kingdoms in India, were below the Brahmin or the priest. They were special protected and they were above them. And even higher up, like I said, they would be even higher up in the caste. Whereas below the rulers, you have the Visa, which are the commoners in the middle class. And so for most Indians, farmers and things like that, the they were the middle class. And we'll talk about how in some ways that wasn't that good of a thing, but in society overall, they were in the middle, whereas opposed to Sumer, Egypt, China, and other places, farmers were at the bottom and they were divided between the craftsmen, not in the Indian caste system. So below the vast majority of people, we have the Brahmin at the top. We have the Kshatriyas below them. The Visas were in the middle. Let's talk about the bottom two castes. You have the Sudras. The Sudras were the servants or laborers. Okay, so whereas some societies would put the farmers and the laborers together, in India there was a difference between servants and laborers, and they're right here. Now below them were the untouchable people who had no no caste at all, and these people were ignored by society. They didn't belong in a particular social structure. And they were considered outcasts, like I said. They generally did jobs that were dirty, like butchers, or jobs that were considered to be religiously unclean. And as a result, you couldn't touch them or have anything to do with them. And they were at the bottom. In fact, in the social pyramid, they're kind of not even attached at all. They're separate. It's like they don't even exist. And there's such large numbers of people in India who had no caste like that. Even today, that's still a problem. And this caste system is the division of Indian society into groups based on a person's birth, like I said, is known as the caste system. And the caste system involves some really interesting things because the caste can't really deal with one another, especially if they're below them. If not, you have to go through ritual cleansing and things like that, which leads to interesting things. Like I saw in the news recently in India where a wealthy person's dog was fed by an untouchable because it ran away from home, and the untouchable cared for the dog. Well, according to Hindu law, the dog had to be cast out of the family's house. And then there's the fact that major leader of a political party visited a Hindu shrine, but because they were of a Sudra caste, uh, the entire temple had to be cleansed and purified because of their presence and stuff like that. And so this is important, not just to society, but religion. And so in many ways, religion and society were closely related in India. Now, even though it was originally developed by the Aryans, like I said, it existed throughout Indian history and is even seen in rural India today, out in the open. But in uh, modern Indian society, in the big cities, you don't see it as much. It's much more informal, where you would see Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Visa families kind of upholding the larger stocks of governments and businesses and things like that, whereas Sudras don't have a lot, and rights of untouchables, even though guaranteed by the Constitution, aren't really there. And so it divided Indian society into groups based on their birth, their wealth, or occupation. So you could be a really wealthy person, but if your job was to bury people, you would be an untouchable, no matter how wealthy you were. Now, think about these castes is because it was based on what family you were from, you're a part of. If you're born into one caste, you would probably stay there your entire life. You wouldn't move up. Chances are, if you would change caste, you would move down because of doing something religiously unclean or some major crime or something like that. So just to review the caste system before we move on and talk about Hinduism, at the top are the Brahmin. Below they're the priests. Below them are the Kshatriya, which are the rulers and warriors of India. In the middle are the commoners like the farmers, the craftsmen, the merchants. These are Visas. Below them were the servants and laborers, which are the Sudra, and below them was a wide-ranging group of people with no caste at all, which are known as untouchables, because they did things that were unclean, or they might have broken laws or societal things like that. So, let's actually talk about the religion of Indian religion, and that is Hinduism. And it is the most popular religion in India today. About 80% of all Indians living in India are Hindus. And Hinduism, in many ways, is a religion that's just a whole bunch of miniature religions or related religions together. There's like no Bible or Quran. There's the Vedic text, and there's no one God. In fact, we don't even really know how many gods there are. Some people say 330 million. We have some Indians who believe that there's only one God, some that believe there's three gods, some believe there's five gods, some believe that there's too many gods, some even believe that there's no God. It's such a wide-ranging thing. And it was developed from Brahmanism, which was the religion of the Aryans and other influences in India. Now, Hindus believe, like I said, that there are many gods, which makes it polytheistic, but all gods are part of a universal spirit called Brahman. Okay? Related to the Brahmanism, which is where we get the Brahmin name. Now, one of the ideas in Hinduism is that all souls are known as the Atman, and the Atman eventually want to join Brahman, that there's a longness in the soul in order to join it. And this process of being purified and cleaned and being able to do that can take several lifetimes. Okay, so as a result, Hindus believe in reincarnation or rebirth. So they believe that once you die, you're born again as something else. Now, how you are reborn depends of your karma. Okay, you might have heard someone does something bad. Oh, that's bad karma. Karma is the effects that good or bad actions have on a person's soul, like I just said. So about, oh, well, that they had good karma, that happened to them, or bad karma. That's where we get the idea from. It's from a Hindu idea. According to Hindu belief, karma is what develops a person's life. And according to the caste system, when people are born in a particular caste, it's because of the karma they had in a previous life. So if you work real hard and you're a good Sudra or something like that, and you die, when you're reborn, you could grow up into a higher caste. And those with worse karma, bad karma, are born into lower caste, or even as an untouchable, or even an animal. Some animals would be considered unclean. You could be grown into, like you could do something really bad and be reborn as a cockroach. But the idea is to get to the point where you can unite with Brahman. And so the higher you are in the Indian caste system, the more karma you have in your life. And of course, cows, as y'all know, are considered holy, and those are considered people who have had good karma in previous lives, and they grow like that. So let's look a little bit about some Hindu stuff right here. This is a Hindu temple, okay? Hindu temple in India. And let's look at the big three gods in Hinduism. This is Brahma. Brahma's considered to be the creator. He's riding his swan. He has many different heads they can see in the four directions and many different arms. Uh, Probably the most popular, Brahma being the creator, is Vishnu. Vishnu is the protector. And there's a particular group of Hindu people who say that Vishnu is the only god and that they shouldn't, that no one should worship anyone but him. And in Indian history, they said that Vishnu comes in 10 different forms. And one of them was this Krishna. And Krishna wrote some of the Hindu texts. He was a mighty king, a mighty warrior. Right here, he's fighting and defeating a demon. And it said that in the end of days that there's been 9 incarnations of Vishnu so far, and that the 10th he would come and bring all that is right with the world. And finally, we have the third one, which is Shiva. Okay, so Brahma is the creator. Vishnu is the protector. Shiva is the destroyer or the transformer. And Shiva is here with his wife Parvati, and he generally does good and bad things depending on his whims or his roles in society. His hair is alleged to form the Ganges River, and yes, it's a cobra he holds, and a cobra in his hair. It's a symbol of power. And so we see throughout history that Shiva, along with Vishnu and Brahma, all work together to ensure humanity is okay and continues along, and as a result, Hindus should worship him. So, that's your lesson on Hinduism, and mainly the caste system. Just remember, the caste system, at the top you have the Brahmin, below them the Kshatriya, then you have the Visas, the Sudras, and then the Untouchables. And Hinduism is the most popular religion in India today, and the big 3 gods are the creator, even though there's almost unlimited number. There's the big 3. There's Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the protector, and Shiva, the transformer or destroyer. So that's all we have for this lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know, and thanks for watching.
जिस्म में रूह में इश्क रवा रवा